your understanding on MDG so that I can, talk about MDG and the training sessions accordingly. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Srinivas, just one thing, which is what is this academy that you are representing? SAP Wits, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just to give you a background, Srinivas, so I'm part of the supply chain management processes, and I lead the master data, supplier onboarding, catalog, and contract processes over here. The reason to connect over this call is because we have just migrated from the MDM module to the MDG module of SAP over the last 1 year. One by one, my processes have migrated, and the team, as in the people, group of people in this call from my end, represent the master data, the supplier onboarding, and the catalog processes, which are prima facie using this platform, the MDG platform as of now. As we talk, the last of my process, that is catalog, has moved to the SCP MDG module. And so we were having a couple of discussions with the learning and development team of ours. And we said that while our people are already using these platforms, they have the I cannot rate it, but yes, they have knowledge much more than a beginner would have knowledge on these modules or these platforms. However, I want them to be categorized or certified as say an expert, or just on a scale of 1 to 5, maybe at a 4.5 or so. And hence Pinakesh somewhere in April had shared an extensive module that I guess was something that you had provided, and it had got all the details of MDG therein. And then Jaishil from my team, I think, had gone through it, and there were a couple of discussions that we wanted to have with you to understand what all should be covered and what is the knowledge level that my team currently has. These people in the call right now are the subject matter experts. So the level of knowledge that they have, and what is it that can be added so that they can become the experts in this. That was the crux of the discussion I wanted to have on this call.
Okay, clear. Then I think it's not going to be a regular demo session. So you already working on MDG and have some basic understanding, knowledge, right? So you have specific questions to ask, or is it something how you want to take it up this demo sessions?
Okay, so my suggestion would be there was already a proposal that was shared. I don't know whether, as in, it must be from you, as in someone from you only who would have shared it, right? So if we can go through the content of the sessions that you normally do for MDG, and then maybe my team can give you inputs in terms of whether actually they need this details, or are they uh, kind of not even requiring that part to be covered, because prima facie what we want is for them to go above to whatever they have already learned so far.
Okay, clear. Okay, so then let me start my screen sharing, and then I'll just go with the content or the topic which you usually cover and the way how I'll cover, and then you can pinpoint of whether it is required or not, so that accordingly we can take it up.
Sure, that helps. Yeah. Jaishi, Sijo, is Manthan there on the call? Yeah, Manthan. Hi, Pinakesh.
Hi, I'm sorry. I finally managed to log in on the phone, but yeah, please
Pinakesh,
carry on.
no worries. I just gave an update to Srinivas, the trainer who is there, in terms of what is it that my team already understands and knows, and what is it that we would want them to take beyond. And Srinivas was just now going to take us through what all is the content that they have, so that we can take a call on what is required, what is it that the team is already aware.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. And while Srinivas is displaying Jaishil Manthan feature, just for your reference, we are talking about the module here, which will help you to kind of polish your skills as far as the MDG process is concerned, right? The platform is concerned. And this will be prima facie for the people who are more seasoned into the process. Yeah, that's the way we will be handling this. Yes, Srinivas, over to
Okay.
you, please.
Okay.
Okay. So so I'll start with a general end user way how you see the screen and what are the technical backends behind it. So I believe so the process is already set up. So I'll just try to connect the backend and the front end how it works, and then how we can take it up each topic in the session. So I'll just go with the supplier governance process, which you have already using it in the system. So the first thing is, I don't have to explain why MDG, what MDG, and other stuff. So to start with, okay, for example, so from a data model perspective, from an MDG perspective, the main thing which comes in, or the first thing which comes in, is the the data model itself. So what is data model is something, as you know that in the backend we have specific tables to store the master data, but we want to put an additional layer. From an MDG perspective, we are putting an additional layer so that it goes into an approval process. Until approval process, we need to store the data in somewhere, right? So the data model is something, from a layman perspective, this is where the table, the temporary tables, or we call it as in a, we call it as a staging table. So these will get generated based on the data model. So data model just defines the structure of the master data which you want to govern. So when we are talking about structure, so there are around hundreds of fields at the back end. So if you ask whether all the fields are supported in MDG, no, by standard all the fields are not supported in MDG. And apart from that, we also have custom fields in the MDG at the back end. So, and there are many more custom tables and other stuff. So those are not supported out of box in the MDG system. So when we're talking about the data model, the primary structure, so whatever the fields which are available in the data model, that can only be governed using MDG. So for example, when I see I can try to create a new organization or a sub group, and I see a list of fields over here, which is ideally based on the backend data model and then the general model. Okay, so that's where the data model comes in picture. So the main so in this case, whenever we are talking about a data model, so probably if you are not sufficient with the standard fields which is available, we do enhancement on the standard data model. Okay, so here enhancement means it can be a single field. You can add a custom field to a data model, or you can have a a complete custom table you want to bring it into MDG, or you want to store certain tables just for a kind of a transition table, so which is used only during the governance process, but not, you don't want to replicate to the ECC or the S4 system. So there are multiple enhancements which you do in the data model. Okay, so the first topic which we going to govern going to talk in the session is the data model. What is an entity, what is an attribute, and when we are talking about and relationship, and then we are going to talk about handler classes. So when we are trying to add any new fields or new table, for example, let's say you want to add a credit so for example, supplier, you want to maintain certain custom tables, okay, which is not in the backend, not in the MDG. So then you want to maintain certain things using the handler classes and other stuff. Okay, so these are the kind of enhancement which we talk, and then we also discuss about SMT mapping. So as I mentioned, there are two different tables is going to be there. One is a staging table, which is an MDG generated table where the data will get stored during the change request process. And then we have a set of tables at the backend, which is like the normal LFA1, BU2001, all the other tables. Okay, these are two different tables. The field names will be different. The structures will be different. Okay. So in this case, when you are activating a master data, you created a change request, you created a supplier in MDG, and it's about to get activated. So while activation, you need to pass the data from the MDG system to the backend system. So that's where the SMT mapping comes in picture. It's just a simple mapping to pass the data from MDG to the backend system. And similarly, there is a mapping between the backend and then to the MDG. That means whenever you are trying to read a supplier, open a supplier. So what happens is the MDG, at least with the BP and the material data model, or flex mode, so not the flex mode, it's a reuse mode. So that means it will read the data from the backend and then it will show it in the MDG. So in those cases, we need to do this SMT mapping. So these are the topics on a high level from a data model is covered. So when you want to extend any field, when you want to govern any new fields in MDG, these are the step of things which needs to be taken care, so that for the proper governance of that field in the MDG. I'm not sure. Am I going in deep at the first time, or you are fine?
No. I can relate to this thing.
Okay. So, I'm just thinking that you are having the basic understanding. So that's where I'm just going in directly into the topics.
Mm-hmm. No. So
Okay.
far everything is clear. Manthan, Sijo, any points to be raised here or any confusion?
I joined in a bit late, so can you please quickly run through the points, the enhancements, entity?
Okay. So what I was telling is from a data model perspective. So the data model defines the structure of the fields which you want to govern using MDG. Any field, if you want to govern using MDG, that is using the change request process, the first and foremost thing is it should be available in the data model. The field should be available in the data model. Okay. So as I mentioned, the data model defines the structure of the fields which you want to govern using MDG. So what the data model defines the structure, and also it provides you the table, a kind of a staging table or the temporary table where the data will get stored during the change request process. Okay, these are the two main purpose of the data model. Okay, so apart from any standard data model which you standard fields which you want to govern, so you need to enhance this data model. Okay, at least from business supply perspective, we have this BP data model, which is kind of a combined data model for business partner, customer, and supplier. So you need to enhance that. Okay. So how you can enhance, or generally what are the enhancements is, you may add a new field, or you want to govern a kind of a complete set of table, a kind of a custom table at the backend, or you can have a kind of a transition transition fields. That means, for example, during the change request process only I need that field for certain process. Okay, maybe it can be for a certain approval determination or for certain UI determination. Okay, so only for that purpose you need it, but after activation you don't need that field anymore or the value anymore. So then that is also kind of a flex, a transition fields. So those are the kind of enhancements you can do at the data model level. So when we are doing that, so we may add an entity or an attribute and a relationship. Entity you can correlate as a table. As of now, you can correlate as a kind of a table. Attribute is just like a table field. Okay, and we may need to create certain classes to pass the data. While you save it, it needs to be saved at the backend. So the handler classes comes in picture, or we can also call it as an access class. And then to pass the data between these two different tables, right, the staging area and the active area, an SMT mapping might require. This is just to pass the data, because there are many for example, when you talk about supplier number at the backend, okay, it's called listener. Okay, here in BP data model, it's just based on the BP cusgen, vengen. Okay, it is not the exact field name. The field name will not be same in both the areas. So you need to do the mapping so that it will go pass to the right field and then get stored in the right field at the backend. Okay, so these are the things which needs to be done or taken care when you want to enhance a data model, when you want to govern any new field or tables in MDG. Any questions on this? So these are the things will be covered as part of the data model. So we will be going through specific scenarios, or if you have any specific scenarios to be covered, we can take it accordingly and then cover that.
Is this applicable for custom tables as well? Because if I talk about the catalog process, near about 60 to 70% tables and decodes are custom one, right? So is this applicable for those even?
When we are talking about custom tables, there are two things. One is you can store the data, the active data, that is the approved data in MDG itself, that is in the staging table itself. So if it is a flex entity, we don't need that. But when we are talking about, okay, I need that data available at the custom table at the backend as well. So then it is a reuse mode. In those cases, yes, the handler class and SMT mapping are required. For example, you may have these custom tables at ECC perspective or the S4 system. Okay, whereas in MDG you don't have that custom fields. So there are, it's fine. It depends on the scenario whether you want to govern it using the MDG. Whether you want to bring those custom tables at the MDG as well, and then have you can create it as a reuse mode, or if you find that okay, it's not needed at MDG level, I can go with only the flex entity, then yes, you can go with the flex entity, because it depends on the other scenarios, like what kind of replication model you are going to use, how it is going to replicate it. All those things comes in picture in determining that categorization, whether it's going to be a flex entity, that is whether you are going to store only in the MDG table or at the backend tables as well.
Okay, and these all things we can do it for the process governance and data governance, so we can put a validation on that as well.
Yes, so there is no limitation on the governance process. Okay, it's only the data where it gets stored.
Okay, got a point. Thank you.
And the next thing is once you have this, so generally after you have that data model enhancement, the next thing you have to do is, or the next thing you will focus is bringing that field for the user so that they can govern using the MDG process, right? So in this case, the next topic generally I'll cover is the UI modeling. So here we will, create custom UIs.
When you say UI, you are referring to the front-end Fiori applications, right?
So two things. One is native Fiori application. Another one is an NWBC, which is embedded in the Fiori application. So whatever you see from a Fiori perspective, right? All those are not a standard Fiori application. Those are kind of a WebDin Pro application from an MDG perspective. Most of the applications are WebDin Pro application, which is embedded into the Fiori application. Okay, but yes, I'm talking about both.
Okay.
For example, this, so there is some data model activation at the backend, so that's where I couldn't, close this. I'll just leave it as it is. When you, for example, I'm trying to add a new field over here. This is a WebDin Pro application. Okay, the same WebDin Pro application has been added to the Fiori Launchpad as well. Okay, if you see that the look and feel will be kind of a Fiori, but if you ask whether it is a native Fiori application, no, it is a WebDin Pro application which has been embedded in the Fiori Launchpad. Okay, so when you do an enhancement over here, okay, in the WebDin Pro application, the same will be available in the Fiori as well. Okay, and apart from that, there are certain standard Fiori applications like approve change request, request change request, request supplies, and other stuff. Okay, I'm not sure whether you are using that. Most probably, I believe you are using this Fiori application, WebDin Pro based application in the Fiori Launchpad.
Yep, we are using them.
So in this case, then we are talking about the WebDin Pro itself in the Fiori. So here you can add a form UIBB. I believe you may aware of the form UI. This is a kind of a form UI. Okay, and if you want to maintain a 1:n relationship, for example, roles. So this is a kind of a tabular format. So here you can have a list UI created, and then you can display. For example, for one supplier, you may have multiple. For example, the sales org information or the purchase org information itself, right? So that will be listed in a list UI, and then from there you can navigate to again a form UI or another page where you can display the complete information. Okay, so the mainly from when we are talking about UI, mainly it's going to be a form UI or list UI. Apart from that, there are and then composite UI. Okay, so most of the UI from an MDG can be classified, can be achieved using these three UIVBs. Okay, so we will be creating these UIs, and when we are talking about, there are certain feeder class comes in picture. So feeder class, you can control the UI logic. For example, an event, when you try to add a new button, so the event will be controlled using the feeder class, and the data which you can see in the UI can be controlled or can be changed using the feeder class. You can change the definition. For example, there can be certain for example, you may need to add a field like a description, which is not generally governed using MDG, but it's just for an information purpose. Okay, in those cases you can bring those enhance the feeder class and just show the description of that particular field, which is not governed using MDG. That's kind of an information field. So those kind of enhancements can be done at the feeder class level.
So when you say information field, that means you are referring to something like a description of the change request which user will submit, or the date of the request or something like that. It's
not like that. For example, let's say for example, here I'm saying it is not a right example, but just try to understand from this. Let's say country. A country is a field which you can govern using MDG, but the country description is just an information purpose. All right. So you may have custom tables and other stuff. Okay. So this is kind of information which you don't want to make a data model changes. Rather, you can just show it in the UI only for information. So those kind of fields.
Got it. So basically those kind of fields where your field description is maintained at the backend level, you are just displaying at the front end UI.
Yeah, whatever the fields which you don't govern, which you don't want to govern using MDG, but you want to show it in a user, show it for the user, just for their information purpose, so that they can understand and then populate the other fields accordingly. So those kind of fields.
Got it. Thanks.
So these are the things will be covered using UI modeling, and again there are certain baddies which is available, through which you can control the field properties. For example, generally what happens is for a specific step I want to show the specific fields or the specific UI. You can do it using dynamic control, kind of creating a kind of a table. Okay, for example, I want to make this supplier details editable just only for the requester step. Okay, there can be other steps. For example, I'm not sure how many process steps you have. So when you're going with the other information, you just want to show specific UI or specific field, just a read only or hidden. So those kind of things can be achieved using a baddie. And then similarly, you can control the the different UIs which is getting displayed dynamically based on the step or based on the user, based on the role, however you want to control. So there are baddies, and then
baddies are generally used for validations, if I'm not wrong, right?
Not only for validations.
Because we have on our side, we have it for validation purposes.
Okay. Yeah, so mainly yes, but from an UI modeling, or also we have certain baddies through using which you can control certain field properties. Okay, even for example, the change request which you when you try to create a change request, right, the change request header also have certain fields. So you have descriptions, you have priority, reasons, notes, and other stuff, right? So those kind of things can be also controlled. For example, you are not using priority, let's say. So then you want to control the visibility of the field. I don't want to show this field because the user is not using that. So then you can use a baddie to control that field property of that specific due date or reason or priority, whatever it is. or you can auto populate certain information. Okay, the description, it's always a kind of a confusion what the user wants to fill in. You can auto populate or suggest something or default certain values in the description. So those kind of things can be done using the baddies. But yes, BRF plus validations and derivations mainly baddies, but we have baddies in the UI modeling as well.
Okay.
Okay, so we will cover these in the UI modeling topic, and next comes with the process modeling. Maybe before process modeling, I would like to cover the search and duplicate check. So here, the standard MDG uses HANA searches, at least, I believe since we are talking about S4, it will be kind of an MDG specific, search, HANA based search. So here you can control the fields which you can, see it. For example, later after enhancing the data model, you may want to bring a custom field and you want to allow the user to search with that custom field. So in that case, you may need to bring those field over here. So then there are certain configuration and you need to generate the search view. Okay, so those kind of things will be discussed in this topic.
So this will only contain the standard S4 fields and not the custom ones, right? Or can we include the custom as well
We
easily?
can include the custom fields. So that's what I'm saying. If you want to bring a search based on a custom field, then you can do that. You need certain configuration and then just the search view generation, then you are good. You can get the data from the backend and then display it. You can search with that field as well. Okay, it can be a flex field or a reuse field, so that doesn't matter, but you can do this, configure the search accordingly. And then the duplicate check. So here, from a duplicate check perspective, so the main thing we will be talking is the match profile. So what is the importance of the match profile? How you can control the duplicate check? So if you have already configured the match profile, so definitely there will be certain duplicate checks and other stuff. When you do this configuration, you can control how the duplicates are identified, what are the fields are considered, what is the weightage which has been given for each of the fields and other stuff. Okay, so these things will be covered in the match profile. Okay, so these are the high level on the search and duplicate check. And then process modeling.
Hello.
Yeah.
So what I understood from search and duplicate check is the first point, search and configure. That means in that topic, we can put our configuration through which field we want user to search the data, right?
Yes.
And for the
Yes.
duplicate match profile, that what are the things which is matching with the profile, and what we can say, okay, this is a duplicate, this is not. Is it what?
Yes,
The
when
thing
you
is?
try to create a new supplier, right? So generally the duplicate check will be enabled. Let's say the user by standard, I believe the name, the source term and the city, address, country. So those are enabled to identify the potential duplicates from the system, okay, which is available at the backend. And that is something
Got
you
it.
can fine tune according to your, organizational need.
Yeah,
Okay,
got
so
it.
that
Got
is
it.
something we will define using the match profile.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Thank you so much.
And then the process modeling. Okay, so here this is where we comes up with the change request processing, the main part of the governance. So the first thing is we will try to understand how the change. For example, when I try to click on new, right? So I just click on organization. So there are a list of change requests comes in here. Okay, and similarly when we are going with the finance or the material master, the list of change requests which is available or displayed in the UI is something different. Okay, so here we will try to understand the different tiny topics like the business activity, logical action, and how it is linked and how the list of change requests is getting displayed. And then first thing is we will discuss what are the things we are going to configure how we can configure the change request and what are the different things. Okay, whether it is going to be a single object change request or it's going to be a multiple object change request. That means you can create multiple records with a single change request. Whether you can also enable a parallel change request if needed. So for example, you want to create two different change requests for a same supply at the same time. So those kind of parallel change requests can be enabled. And after that, after understanding the change request, we will try to understand how the configuration, how the linkage between the UI and the change request determination happens. So that is something we will be discussing. And then we will jump into the BRF plus. I believe you might be using rule-based workflow. So here we will try to extensively cover the rule-based workflow. What are the different things can be achieved using the rule-based workflow. Okay, so this is kind of a decision table. So there are two things. One is the decision table itself, and then the set of baddies which is available at the backend. Okay, so both the things will be covered using this rule-based workflow. Say for example, dynamic agent selection and parallel processing. For example, when you try to create a supplier, it needs to goes to both the finance team and the and then the supplier sales team, purchase team as well. So we will discussing about the parallel processing. And then rule context. So that means based on certain field, you want to trigger the workflow to a specific step. So these things, and then system column methods. You want to trigger an email notification or call certain other validation at the backend. Trigger certain jobs at the backend. So those kind of things can be done, or you can create a follow-up change request. So these kind of things can be done using the system column method. So these are the different baddies which is available at the backend. So we will be discussing about all the three decision tables which is available to configure the workflow, and then try to cover all the topics for which specific example. So these things will be covered using the BRF plus workflow. And once we cover the workflow, so again we come to the change request. So we will be discussing about the different configurations which you can do at the change request. So for example, at a specific step, you don't want the user to make any changes to the specific field or a specific entity. So here we will be talking about the change request property and the governance scope. You can change the governance scope or the change request properties level. So these things can be used to control a granular level of the process modeling process which you are trying to which you are doing in the system. Okay, so you can enable certain validations, or you can disable the validations. You can disable the duplicate check at specific step. You can display an error message as a warning message. So these are kind of a few things which you can achieve, but there are a lot of things you can achieve using this change request properties and the governance scope. Okay, these things will be covered using under the process modeling topic. And then the validations. Any questions, Stella?
No.
Okay. And here comes the validations. So here we will touch base the base of the BRF plus, which is not so efficient tool, but we will be focusing more on the validations and derivation at the backend. That is the baddies. So using which you can do a lot of stuff. A lot of validations and derivations generally will be done using the baddies. Very simple validations can be achieved using the BRF plus, but we will give you the flavor of both, and we will be extensively talking about the baddie part at the backend. Okay, so here how you can do a cross entity validations, a cross entity derivations, a simple validation. What are the things you can do, what are the things you cannot do? So all those things we will be discussing in the validations and derivations topic. And then replication configuration. So here we can, we will be talking about the replication model configuration, and then the corresponding, I believe, since we are talking about supplier, it should be SOA. So web service configuration, how you can enhance a field in the web service. So those kind of things can be covered here. Okay. And then key mapping and value mapping. So a key mapping is from a layman perspective. So for example, you have a business supplier number here, and when you try to replicate the supplier to an S4 system, for certain reasons, if the supplier number cannot be same, so then the key mapping is the one. It's a kind of a table you can mention. Okay, for this master data, that for this supplier, what is the supplier ID in MDG system and what is the supplier in the S4 system. So these kind of things can be maintained using the key mapping. So we will be discussing about the key mapping concept and the ALE odd, how you can automatically update this key mapping and other stuff. And then value mapping is, for example, you have a payment terms in MDG system, or if you are having multiple S4 system, multiple ECC system or legacy system, you want to replicate a supplier, the payment terms which you are using in MDG is different in the legacy system, or in the for example the Ariba system or any system. So in this case, while replicating, you want to send the corresponding payment terms of that system. For example, in MDG, the payment term can be A for 30 days due, whereas in the target system, the 30 days due has been mentioned with a number 1. So then it is a value mapping. So you have to pass the corresponding 1 value to the legacy system, otherwise the system will not understand, okay, what is A. Okay, so that's when the value mapping comes in picture. You can do the value mapping so that while replication, the system will understand the corresponding value, so that it can update it accordingly. Otherwise it may cause it an issue. So we will be discussing about the value mapping and how you can configure the value mapping. So those things will be discussed. And then the main another major topic is the consolidation and mass processing. So consolidation is not tightly, or it's not a dependent object on a master data. You can have this consolidation without the governance itself. Okay, that is without the change request process itself, or without the data MDG itself, you can have this consolidation enabled. But generally it's kind of a enabled together. So you can, using consolidation, you can create multiple master record in one shot. It's kind of a for the bulk creation. When you want, for example, when you are acquiring a new company, you want to migrate those suppliers into the system, or you may have other process where you want to create a supplier in a massive way. So then you can use this consolidation. The consolidation have set of processes using which you can create the master data, the supplier, into the MDG system in a normal S4 system. So here you have two options. So there are multiple things, multiple steps. Similar to the process modeling, the consolidation itself follows a set of process which you can configure. Okay, so whether you want to for example, I try to load a set of suppliers into the system, a business partner into the system. Okay, whether you want to do this best matching duplication check, or whether I want to perform the validations, or whether I want to do the enrichments. So those kind of things you can configure using the consolidation process. And then finally, after activation, you have again an option whether you want to activate directly or you want to activate with the change request process. So we will be discussing about that consolidation and mass processing as well. So mass processing is mainly for extension or changing in master data, whereas for a consolidation it's a creation of record. For example, you already have a supplier, you want to extend to a new company code, so then you go with the mass processing, whereas consolidation you want to create the supplier at the very beginning. So these are the different two mass tool which is available, using which you can govern the MDG master data in the system. Okay, so this is will be covered, and then we will be discussing about the topics, and then also the if you have custom fields in the data model, you may also need to do certain extension in the consolidation, so that you can govern those fields also. You can upload those fields also using consolidation and mass processing. Okay, these are the topics will be covered on a high level. This is how we are going to cover. Maybe you can provide your feedback, and you can let me know, is it matching your expectation, or are you looking for anything specific?
Yeah, so from supplier, finance, material master, and customer front, so business partner, finance, and material master front, this is this does set in the criteria which we are looking for.
Mm-hmm. And are you working on any custom data models as well, or so here, as part of the data model, apart from extensions, so once we talk about the basic of data model, so we can try to create a custom data model as well, and then try to create a UI modeling for those. So that is also something can be covered.
Yes, that is required actually.
Okay.
Shivanas, can you just send us this notepad file as well after this call?
Yep. Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If there are
Anything?
no other questions,
Yeah.
no, go ahead, Srinivas.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please go on.
No, I was just saying that if we don't have any other questions, then I think we can call it a day, and then of course we'll be in touch for the next steps. But I'll leave that to the team to check if there are any other questions, clarifying thoughts.
So currently we are not having question right now. So all
Okay.
those things which I have explained, it is we understood each and everything. I just asked
And
to
this is what we are looking for.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is what I asked. That is why I asked this notepad, right? And I'll go. We will go through it again, and if anything will be there, we will send a mail or something if there is any question.
Okay. Perfect. So any questions, comments from Srinivas, you or Deepa?
Nothing from my side. So yeah, so if you have any specific topics to be covered, and even for each of the scenarios, you might already have certain things implemented in your system, so you can bring up to the table, so that we can discuss on that specific how it was implemented, so that you can easily correlate the topic. So the process and how you want to take you through the examples and other stuff, you can just let me know, so that accordingly we can cater the sessions. But apart from that, I'm good.
Okay. So I think that then between Manthan, Jay, and others, they will be able to reach out directly and suggest changes if required. So I think we are good then. And as next steps, then what I'll do is probably chat with Deepa separately and pick it up from there. And of course, this document, if you can send it through us, that will be nice.
Yep. I'll be sharing it.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So then I think we are good to go. And thank you so much for dialing in and taking us through the details of it. I'm very sure that this has been quite helpful. So let's stay in touch, and we will then look at what are the next steps. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.